to mark a historic day in the life of our nation. Wherever South Africans are across the globe, our hearts beat as one as we renew our common loyalty to our country and our commitment to its future. The birth of our South African nation has, like any other, passed through a long and often painful process. The ultimate goal of a better life has yet to be realized. But if any one day marked the crossing of the divide from a post of conflict and division to the possibility of unity and peace, from inequality to equality, from a history of oppression to a future of freedom, it is 27th of April 1994. On this day, you, the people, took your destiny into your own hands. You decided that nothing would prevent you from exercising your hard-won right to elect a government of your choice. Your patience, your discipline, your single-minded purposefulness have become a legend throughout the world.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to this Freedom Day special broadcast brought to you by SABC News. My name is Vuyo Mvoko and thanks for joining us. Well, today our nation celebrates 19 years of transition from apartheid to an inclusive democracy. April 27 commemorates the day in 1994 when the first democratic election was held in South Africa. The theme for this year's celebrations is mobilizing society towards consolidating our democracy and freedom. And as is custom, Freedom Day celebrations are taking place at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. And that's where my colleague Tammy Dixon will be joining us from a little later on. But also Griselda Lewis will also be joining us in celebrations that are meant to serve, of course, as a reminder of our struggle for freedom. For now, though, we're going to go to an insert prepared for us by Tumisho Mashaba, looking back at this day.
The experts told us that it is impossible to organize a national election in the period of 4 months that we were given. They said you would need 18 months, preferably 2 years to do it.
We made a conclusion that we do not have a voters' roll. We must start from scratch because in 1994 you voted as a citizen and people were given cards, but there was no national common voters' roll.
Rajesh Lechman is the coordinator for the National Social Welfare Forum and an ardent advocate for human rights. He reflects on the big day.
For the first time, for me the symbolism was that I was actually a South African. I mean, I might have been South African before that, but I didn't have sort of the legal status of being a South African. I didn't have universal franchise with my fellow countrymen.
Paul Weinberg was the official photographer for the IEC during the 1994 elections.
The most remarkable moment for me was not so much my own voting, but witnessing Nelson Mandela voting for the first time. And I was very nervous, actually. I took about 25 light meter readings just to make sure that I was correct. And then he came in eventually and he voted. And I got a moment, yeah.
To date, all general and local government elections have been deemed free and fair, a capability that has eluded a majority of African states since the gaining of independence.
The first elections are often carried through by the enthusiasm of the moment, It's the second and third elections when there's no longer the excitement of the honeymoon, that complacency sets in, apathy sets in, and it's a known problem.
South Africa is a very dynamic society, very vibrant. Politically, in all respect, we voice our views very strongly. But the interesting thing about South Africa is when it comes to elections, we come together. We go, we make sure that those elections are a success.
The IEC had to make good use of the technology at its disposal.
The zip machine, by means of which people are registered, South African voters will have seen it when they went to register, a small handheld little device, no bigger than what you have at a shop where you pay by credit card. When you vote, your details are put into that self-same machine. In 1994, the political parties accepted, and we as the IEC accepted as an unpleasant reality, that there were areas where the ANC simply couldn't go and campaign, and there were areas where the National Party or the DA simply couldn't go and campaign. That is to some extent still extant, but very much less so.
South Africans continue to vote largely according to racial identity. However, any threat to democracy or democratic institutions remains a unifying factor.
Besides the secrecy bill, the e-tolling is another example of kind of that top-downness of apartheid, The apartheid state decided you can swim on this beach and you can swim on that beach and we'll draw a line here, and it got implemented.
So are we backtracking as a country or making headway with our heart for democracy? Dumiso Mashaba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, here in the studio, I'm joined by author Kaya Dlanga and social commentator Kay Sekhwalo. Welcome to both of you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, 19 years on, your take, Kay, where are we?
My take is that we've come a long way, and we need to be very happy about the gains made of freedom. There's a lot of negativity that comes out in the press a lot of the time about where we are. But people tend to forget and not focus enough on the fact that South Africa is free and that there are a lot of gains that have been made in the 19 years.
Okay.
We really have gone, I think, quite far. We've achieved a lot as a country, and I think it's also great that the media and certain people raise certain issues to make us aware that actually we are not completely free. And particularly when people start talking about economic freedom. And Nelson Mandela himself said that, we cannot have freedom without bread, and nor can you have bread without freedom. So we need to have both. And it seems at this point in time we have the freedom, but we don't have the bread. So the question that needs to be raised, according to all Mandela's own measures, are we really free?
Are we really free? Now, let's start, Kay, with the positives, the good. What is there to celebrate that perhaps a lot of people seem to, as you suggested, seem to have or often lose sight of?
Yes, what there is
to take for granted.
Yeah, there's media freedom, for example, even though there are questions around that this week, as you know, that have come up. But there's also the freedom to move around as one pleases, the freedom to association, and also the gains of what the government has done in the 19 years. Millions of houses have been built, whereas nobody has ever actually achieved that sort of feat before globally. But at the same time, there have been questions around the quality of the housing, etc. But also many other freedoms that we enjoy today that we would never have enjoyed. You and I would not be sitting here in 1991 even. At this point, discussing freedom 19 years on. So a lot of the time we look at the negativities in society. You see it a lot on social media and other areas as well. But I think it's very important for us to focus on what we have done right, correct what is going wrong. There's a lot, obviously, and we can't ignore those. But at the same time, I think a positive outlook is what is required. A lot of us are usually negative, and we need to come and nip it in the bud.
Kaya, a lot of what we are perhaps taking for granted, but which we should be celebrating today?
Yeah, there is just so much. Again, like a few years ago, like you're saying, this would be an illegal gathering, you know, because we're just looking at the people sitting here, you know. And we definitely, we were not allowed to say certain things. Mandela's name could not be said. Walter Sisulu's name people could not march. And people, like, someone could just go into your door and take you and have no, without having a proper legal process being followed. So there are many things that we can really celebrate that we take for granted today.
Now, you're very big on social media. And Kay was mentioning just how a lot of that sort of negativity coming out, particularly out of your social media. What are, especially young people in this country who may not have been there or may not have been part of the sort of things that we feel, because we have reference points. We know where we're coming from. Mm-hmm. So when we compare what we've experience over the past 19 years to what was there before then, we are able to make comparisons. But there are a lot of young people who don't have that reference point. All they know is what they see now, and perhaps they don't like many of the things that they are seeing now. What for you comes out or stands out as the sort of things that young people are complaining about or are unhappy about?
I think the most obvious one, and probably because of what the news brought out like over the last year, is education. And a lot of them really feel that they are being let down by the system when it comes to education. Particularly I'd say the underprivileged, if I want to use the word. I actually hate using that word, but I cannot think of another word to use instead. Because, I mean, I'll give you an example. When I remember going to Home Affairs. I went to Home Affairs and I was going to get my, a new passport, a new ID. And there were these two boys, both of them black, probably about 16, 17, both of them. You could tell that the one was from a township and the other one, came from maybe Sentin. He was there with his father. He's eloquent and is very confident. And it was quite strange because when I noticed the difference between the two boys, the one boy was from the township, he seemed intimidated and couldn't even fill in his own form. So I had to go and help him fill out this form. 17 years old, 16 years old. And the other boy, he just went there very confidently, filled in his forms, because he has the privilege of having a good education, and the other one has the disadvantage of having a bad education because of whatever circumstances that may happen. So there is a lot of people are concerned by what's happening with the poor, but I don't think that they are concerned enough to do anything about it because it seems too daunting, and maybe they feel that maybe governments are doing enough.
I want to ask you to hold a thought right there, because we did ask some young South Africans on how they perceive and understand their future in a free and democratic South Africa, and this is what they had to say.
The way I see my future is a future whereby we'd actually all forget that one is black, one is white, and one is colored, and be able to work with each other, all of us, because yes, there is freedom now, but then it's not entirely there. So I want it to be there, all of it, so that we can all work together.
Ek is baie gelukkig hierso en ek dink dat my future is baie bright en ek dink ek sal sukkel om in te pas in die wêreld hier.
Ngenxa yala mini mina ndiziva ikava lam ndilibona likhanya kakhulu ukuba ndiyakwazi nakweyiphi na inyuvesi endifuna kuyo. Ndiyakwazi noyofunda naphi na ndihambe nabani na endifuna uhamba naye ngenxa yala mini ye-27 ka-April.
Some young South Africans talking about their feelings, hopes and aspirations. Okay?
What concerns me the most is youth unemployment. We see young pupils like the ones that have just been shown here, who look forward to a life where they come out of school, look for jobs, even create employment opportunities for others. But, there's a stumbling block that we have in society currently where a lot of young people are unemployed, and we need to create those opportunities for them. I think we also need to look at people creating their own opportunities instead of waiting for somebody to come and do something for them. Measures are in place, as we know, with your government interventions such as your Youth Development Agency and others that assist young people to get on their feet and try and make opportunities for themselves. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of apathy and despondency, especially in your poorer communities, where people feel that you know, they're getting a raw deal out of this freedom that we have gained. And even though they are young, they have no particular remembrance or experience with apartheid in the way that it was. Economic apartheid still exists.
But how much of the positives that we've seen, in other words, the building of houses and so on, has sort of perhaps fed into the mentality that even when it comes to jobs, the government has to do something. In other words, I must sit and wait for those opportunities to be created. In other words, not giving people enough drive to actually on their own see the need to actually get up and create jobs for themselves.
A sense of self-entitlement really, I think, is what you're getting at. You look at young people who actually do feel the way that you're saying. They want something to happen because they see stuff happening. I was fortunate enough to listen to the Treasurer General of the ANC last night, and Dr. Zweli Mkhize, and he was saying, you know what, when things are brought to people, they then have more expectations of more happening. So you build houses, and then they want electricity in the houses, and then they want water supplied to them, and so on and so forth. They want clinics built, they want schools built, and the issue of jobs. Where are they going to make money on a day-to-day basis? I think we have a unique problem in South Africa where crime also then comes to filter in. That is fueled by the poverty that we have in society as well. So we need to look at solutions. We gripe a lot, we moan a lot, we see a lot wrong, but I think we need to find opportunities where we start looking for solutions.
If we forget, like say, the state for a second and say, okay, they're supposed to do whatever they are supposed to do, and we want them to do what they are supposed to do. But what do we do as ordinary citizens? One, to empower ourselves as people, but also to empower our communities, to create jobs for our children. So are we doing enough as a people?
I would say that I disagree with the notion that people feel entitled. I think that it is not because people feel entitled. I think that people just want to feel that the opportunities, and they are not getting those opportunities.
Okay, just hold your thought right there, because we're going to cross over to Pretoria right now, where the president has just arrived, and Tammy Dixon is, of course, standing by and will give us a sense of what is going on there, where the official celebrations of this day are being held.
Slow! Arms! Order! Arms! Stand at ease!
You may be seated. A flypast in air display by the South African Air Force will now commence.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vuyo, and welcome here to the lawns of the Union Buildings in Pretoria. The proceedings are officially underway now. We have seen the 21-gun salute with the President of the Republic, Jacob Zuma, honoring that moment there, which actually kick-started the whole proceedings now here at the Union Buildings, the 19th anniversary of our freedom. We are now going to see the performance of the band. The national anthem is also going to come up. And later on in the program, we're going to see the leaders of political parties also giving their messages of support to this day. And then later on, the message of the day will come from the President of the Republic, the Honorable Mr. Jacob Zuma, who will be reflecting over the past 19 years, the strides that this country has made over the last 19 years, as well as the challenges that remain, which have to be dealt with in order to ensure that thousands and thousands of the people of this country do have a slice of this cake of freedom. Let's now witness the fly past as part of this celebration team.
Well, as we celebrate 19 years of freedom and democracy, well, that's exactly how old our national flag is. We look back to this day back in 1994 when our flag was used for the very first time. It was designed by Fred Brunel. Well, the different colors on it representing different things for different people. Well, a very good morning to you on this Freedom Day. I'm Criselda Lewis, coming to you live from the southern lawns of the Union Buildings. As you can see here towards my right, many people have come here to celebrate on this day, on this Freedom Day. Well, what we're expecting a little bit later on today, as well as the national orders, we will see many who have contributed quite significantly to the development of South Africa being honored today. Some of those include Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, while President Jacob Zuma has already arrived. Getting back to those who will be honored today are Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, the African Union Chair, as well as Reverend Jesse Jackson, who played quite a critical role in the fight against apartheid South Africa. Some of the others to be honored include, as well as praise and poet but of course, we will speak to many South Africans as well, who will be able to tell us about what the significance of this day is for them.
Which will be displaying the basic maneuvers that are taught.
Thanks there to Criselda Lewis and Tammy Dixon, who are at the Union Buildings, where the official ceremony to mark this day, 19 years into our democracy, are being held. And here in the studio, of course, I do have Kaya Dlanga and Kay Sekhwale. We continue with our conversation about how South Africans see themselves, or where they find themselves 19 years into democracy. Unemployment, I mean, we spoke about education, Kaya mentioned. There's a whole debate going on right now about the legacy of apartheid and whether we should blame apartheid. And for me, it's I don't think you need to be a genius or a rocket scientist or anything like that. I think you cannot just say 19 years into democracy, 300 and odd years, of colonial rule can be erased, and suddenly we should hold the current government responsible for virtually everything that is going wrong. But at the same time, I think there is a hell lot of room for improvement. I mean, there's a lot that our government should be doing. They should be doing a hell lot better in many instances that we are doing. And the case in point is one on education. I mean, you remember the Limpopo textbook saga, last year, and I mean, no report still. We haven't seen the outcome of that process yet. So, your take, should we blame apartheid?
I think, apartheid is responsible. We just cannot get away from that. And And I always find it a little interesting that people who are it's always the people who are who benefited, I think, from apartheid, who are the first ones to tell us that we shouldn't be blaming apartheid, which I think is extremely unfair. It's almost
and hypocritical.
And hypocritical. It's like basically telling, it's like we have the burden of forgiveness was on us. Okay? We had to do the forgiving. And now we have to keep quiet about what happened in the past. We cannot forget it. We are forgiven. I think that should be allowed. That should be something that people should be grateful for, that yes, we did forgive. But now we feel like we need to, we bear the burden of our forgiveness. We bear the burden of the responsibility and the challenges. And for me, there is a bit of an unfairness, I think, when you look at the whole thing. So the very same people who suffered
I see you
are
nodding.
the same people who are suffering for the freedom that they have today. So I think that it is quite unfair. We do need to continue to blame apartheid. But the thing is, we are the solution. We've got to remember that. We've got to create solutions and not just keep talking about the fact that apartheid is to blame when we have the means to actually fix the problems that were created.
Where do we start is perhaps the question.
Yeah, where do we start? I think I always say the basic thing is education. That's the basic one. Education. Like I read a report the other day that said that about 90% of graduates do get jobs, like 2 to 3 years after graduation. And that means there is a clear pattern. And the people who remain unemployed are the people who actually don't have a great education. So there is a very clear and obvious pattern that we need to fix. But is there a will to do it? We talk about it a lot, but is there a will to actually make it happen?
Is there?
Is there a will? I think there's a will, but I think there should be a stronger will to enforce, to strongly enforce, affirmative action, employment equity, legislate some things, criminalize even the unwilling people who will not participate in these programs, because we have a lot of that, where there's a perpetuation of the past with people preferring to hire people who look like themselves and perpetuating that economic inequality that we have in society, and that needs to come to an end. We can't accept it. We can't keep quiet. And like I was saying, when people want to blame the people who are actually the victims of apartheid by saying, no, don't bring up apartheid, let's forget about it, it's been 19 years, let's move on. I think the comparison is often made with the Holocaust survivors. It's been how many years now, Vuyo, since the 1940s? They haven't forgotten. Nobody's saying to them and dictating to them that they should forget their pain. And I think until we start to see a shift into a more equal society, that's when we'll sit down and, take maybe even listen to their criticism right now. You have it often in the political space as well, with the various point scorings, with political parties arguing about who owns the fight against apartheid. And that's just nonsensical. We all know what the truth is, and there's no need to sugarcoat it.
Do you think, though, that perhaps the politicians and the governing party in particular sort of leaves a lot of things hanging, or they don't do enough, and thereby giving the people you're saying, now want us not to go there, back to apartheid anymore, and yet they were beneficiaries of apartheid? Do you think that the governing party gives them a lot of ground to actually say you are not doing enough? In other words, is the governing party doing enough, to close the gaps? In other words, not so as not to give, all those people who benefited from apartheid room to actually say you can't blame apartheid?
I think that the government could be doing a whole lot more than they're already doing. They're trying hard. The policies are in place. I don't think a lot of people don't question the policies. People question the implementation process. How quickly are we doing things? Where are we making mistakes? And if we make them, how quickly do we correct them? I think it also goes back to public relations, where our governing party is just not up to speed with their public relations program to respond to things quickly, correct certain mistakes quite quickly. We spoke about the Limpopo book saga, for example. That is something that could have been dealt with a whole lot swifter and with a lot less defensiveness, for example.
But if you just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast of our Freedom Day celebrations. We're coming to you live from the SABC headquarters here in Auckland Park, but of course the official celebrations ceremony is being held at the Union Buildings, and that is where Tammy Dixon and Griselda Lewis we are going to cross to right now. Griselda, what is happening at the Union Buildings right now?
Well, welcome back to the Southern Lawns here at the Union Building, celebrating 19 years of freedom and democracy. Many have come out here today to celebrate and, of course, to listen to President Jacob Zuma. One of those people is Priscilla Chabalala, who joins me now. Priscilla, thank you very much for joining us here. You were saying to me you came out here very early this morning to celebrate on this Freedom Day. What does freedom mean for you 19 years on?
Yes, ma'am. Freedom. I mean, I do not think that mo honna ke tlo celebrate this Freedom Day cause ke ba ke rata and then ke ba ke tlhaloganya. Freedom e re retse dilo tse dintsi ka tse go re phela monate bana ba kra dipili batho ba kra dipilisi ko sepetlele for free, bana ba tsena sekolo mahala, di university for free, and then bana ba kra dijo mahala for free. So freedom e re retse dilo tse dintsi gona benong re phela monate ka baka la freedom. So se ke batlang gore freedom e re etsetse gona benong as from now ke khopela gore batho ba ba sa berekeng ba botlhe ba ileng gore bana le di degree le di diploma, at least the government ya rena e ba fe mebereko ba bereke.
19 years on, what would you want to see a government improve on? A lot of significant strides have been made, but what do you want to see as Priscilla Chabalala that you'd want to say to government, please improve on this? You've mentioned a number of things, free education. So what improvements would you like to see?
Yeah, at least the government arena improve gore batho ba bereke because most ba batla go iperekela. Se se go le gore batho ba tshwanetse ba bereke. Batho ba bantsi ke khale ba feditse dikolo ba bana le certificate bana dina le mo 20 years di bodile ka mo dintlong mo nkebe ba kra mebereko government arena e ba check mo so ntho kholo re khopela hona benong ho sentsane ho sa tla bana ba bantsi ba ileng gore ba phasa di matric ba etsa mara ba kra mebereko go tshwana so government arena a ithuse mo bana ba kra mebereko.
Well, Priscilla Chabalala joining us there, telling us what she thinks on this Freedom Day. Basically 19 years later, saying that government has done or rather made significant strides in terms of education and a host of other things. But her main focus, she's saying employment. That's the part where she wants government to improve on. Let's go back to my colleague now, Tammy Dixon.
Thank you very much, Griselda. Indeed, excitement is building up really here at the lawns of the Union Buildings here in Pretoria as the program is right now underway of this day to celebrate 19 years of our freedom since 1994. With me now is the political analyst Ralph Mateja, who's going to help us to understand the meaning of the celebrations here as we celebrate our democracy. Ralph, I see that there's quite a lot of excitement here. Is this a reflection perhaps of the deep appreciation that people still have of this freedom that we got 19 years ago?
There's no doubt that this day continued to be the most important day of great historical significance for majority of South Africans because it marks the end of an atrocious regime and it also offers people a promise for a much better future. Right. So at one level there is still an excitement, as we can see around people coming in and also after the display, the air show by the military, it shows greatly that it feels better to be a South African.
Right. But then as we move away from that day, it's 19 years now, obviously we're moving further away from that day, the romance of that political breakthrough. Is it waning in the country, or is it something that people are still holding on to that this was the day that indeed we got free, or because of the time that is passing now, people are a little bit forgetting about the essence of the day, that it wasn't actually a freedom that came for free. It was paid for by blood and the sweat of many people.
Yeah, I think as a nation we have shifted from the celebratory way of looking at this from the beginning. 19 years ago we were very excited as a nation that we have attained our freedom, and it's going to give us all that we need to be able to build a better society. But our experience the past 19 years has shown us that freedom is not given once and for all. Freedom is a promise that is given to the society, and what needs to be done is for the society to strive to use the available rights like civil liberty rights and also other economic rights to be able to attain certain tangible benefit from that commitment of freedom. So you could say that the excitement is waning gradually, but I think what we are beginning to see is a deeper reflection as to exactly how can South Africans use the freedom that they have to achieve better, because it can never be given once and for all. It is a constant struggle to make humans' lives better.
Is there now that can you say that people are beginning now to realize that they are able, in fact, to demand what is best for them in this freedom? Or do you get a sense that people are still sitting back and excited by the moment of freedom, or perhaps now they've gotten to understand the value of freedom and what it should mean to their lives?
I believe that South Africans, the relationship between the general citizens and the state has changed, and it has shifted based on the experience of the past 19 years. Why I'm saying that is because 19 years ago, people had the sense that the state is this entity, it's a democratic government, you cannot criticize it, you cannot demand certain things. But at this point, I believe that the relationship has normalized, because people have realized that the best way for democracy to work is for them to continue to engage. It's no longer embarrassing for people to raise their voices on government, or to get government to pay attention to some of the demands. So as our society progresses, as the freedom become a normal aspect of our life, we are getting to use some of the tools that are provided by freedom.
Yeah. But then again, obviously, people they've have quite a lot of benefits that they've seen people enjoying under the 19 years of our democracy. Whether you talk about the Bill of Rights that protects people right now, whether you talk about the quality of people's lives in terms of the service delivery that have been provided to people, that I think is something that people can point out to, that this 19 years of freedom has not been in vain.
A lot has been achieved in South Africa. I mean, the first thing is that we can even critically engage our success. Back in the past, we were not allowed to do that. The political space was so closed that we could not even evaluate government. But there is no such thing as a perfect society. Even if you look at countries that have had freedom for the past 350 years, there are still gaps here and there. The most important thing, I think, for South Africans is to take stock at what they have achieved, and therefore take lesson, be proud about what they have achieved, and also demand more. That's the most important aspect of democracy.
All right. Okay, that's our political analyst here, Ralph Mateja, helping us to understand the meaning of these celebrations here as we stand to now mark the national anthem as it plays by the band.
Singing of the national anthem back at the Union Buildings, where the official celebrations of this day, Freedom Day, 19 years into democracy, are, of course, being held. President Jacob Zuma will be delivering the main address a little later on, and we will be bringing you that speech live here on SABC2. But here with me here in the studio is, of course, author Kaya Dlanga and social commentator Kay Sekhwale. We're discussing their take, but also from the experiences, from their interactions with a lot of South Africans. What are the views that they get? What are the experiences of South Africans about this day, 19 years into democracy? First, before we continue with our discussion here in the studio, let's listen to some of the views that ordinary South Africans have expressed about this day.
Democracy yawamosha abantwana iphinde kwenye icala iphinde incede because abantwana bane-rights, people in general mangathi abantwana youth, yeah, so there is a brighter future, there is a disadvantage to that.
It means nothing at all to me because all I know is that the previous government during the time of apartheid babesiphethe as black people, and things have changed. But I don't really see much of a difference, except that now you can work in an environment white, but there's not really much that is different from what used to happen back in the days.
Ibona abantu abamnyama bene freedom, like bene inkululeko, bana benze noba yintoni abayifuna ukuyenza. So akusekho kohlukana between whites and nabantu abamnyama, whites and blacks. So ke ngoku thina abantu abamnyama, abantu abatsha sinala nkululeko and si free to bana senze noba yintoni esifuna uyenza siqale amashishini wethu.
Young South Africans, how they feel about democracy. Like the first guy who says, Yamosha, but interesting take, isn't it?
No, absolutely. But I mean, it's that whole thing about like freedom. With freedom comes responsibility, and I think really that's what it really is. And I think when was it back in the day, we were used to, if you went to school, the teacher was the shambak, and today that's illegal. And I think it's probably referring to that kind of thing. Or, you know, these days when the parent is disciplining a child, they get told, like, the child is saying, I will take you to court. You know.
I was reading some of the tweets now. The official opposition, the DAs, having all sorts of things happening here in Gauteng. Will there ever be a day, you know? Maybe shouldn't we say Freedom Day at the very least? Let's all celebrate. In other words, let's do something that brings us all together. Shouldn't we do, okay, I understand, okay, June 16th, same thing, you know, but shouldn't we say Freedom Day, let's just come together and do things together? In other words, if there's the official thing at the Union Buildings, let all political parties, everybody go there, or not have their own little things on the sides. And in the provinces where there are main events, let them collaborate and do stuff that will sort of show, that will be an expression of our unity. I don't know. I'm just uncomfortable, especially on Freedom Day.
In an ideal democracy, that's exactly what should be happening, where we all come together and celebrate days of freedom or days of independence. You have it in the United States, for example, on the 4th of July. It is not a day for Republicans or for Democrats or whoever is in power at the time. It's a day for everybody. And I think that especially Freedom Day, the other days might be slightly more divisive for some of the opposition parties in their feelings. But now, well, they're new champions of the anti-apartheid struggle, as you know, as well, or so they claim. But if you look, for example, at days like Freedom Day, this is a day that should be lauded and celebrated by everybody, irrespective of their political affiliation.
Well, Freedom Day, what do you think at home? Do you think that Freedom Day should be set aside as a day on which we South Africans, united in our diversity, sort of celebrate together, come together and do things together, even if it's that one day out of 365 days? Well, that's something to think about. Right now, though, we're going to Pretoria, where Griselda Lewis is standing by to give us an update what is happening at the Union Buildings. Griselda?
Well, Welcome back to the southern lawns here at the Union Buildings as we celebrating Freedom Day here, 19 years on. As you can see, there are a shot of Trevor Manuel. We're also speaking to many South Africans who have come here to come and celebrate this day here at the Union Buildings. Joining me now is Babu Stanley Kekana. Babu Kekana, thank you very much for joining us. Masicala ngokubuza nje tata ukuthi inkululeko 19 years on ithetha ukuthini kuwe?
Inkululeko yona iyathetha ngoba ilethe ama-changes ebantwini bebahlupheka kakhulu today, and then nemfundo abaningi bayithola namhla. Siyayibongela yona ngoba isikhiphe kulobunzima besiphakathi kwabo before, and manje sesichukela phambili ukuthi siku freedom manje. Mara le freedom le sikuyo ayisi enough kanjalo ngoba kusanabantu abacindezelwe, abantu abarejwayo. Sibheka izinto ezenzeka emini nasebusuku, especially lapha sihlala khona thina. Sibona imihlolo yenzeka, abantu besifazana bacindezele, bacashazwa every day, and akekho umuntu ongathi uzovela maybe abancede. Lento izochubekela phambili ngoba labantu bafana ne-gangster. The more organization yabo ikhula, is the more kuzohlukumezeka abafazi abaningi. Sebesicela thina ukuthi umbuso izinto ezinjengalezo bazithathela amanyathelo, bangazithathi kancane ngoba zizoletha inhlupheko eningi ebantwini besifazana. Lezi zinto zama-gang rape zizochubekela phambili, akekho umuntu ozozivimba ngoba nabo labo sibathembile ukuthi yibo abatorishileletsana, abasayenzi into ezinjalo. Bancedana nabo labantu abachashaza abantu ukuthi kuye phambili abantu bachashazwe. Leyo nto manje thina abanye sithi sisitshela ukuthi sikunkululeko, nesibona into ezinje sizwe ubuhlungu ngoba sithi inkululeko enjani naku abantu bethu basachashaziwa nanamhla. And akekho umuntu omaphambili ukuthi no mara makuphele lokhu kuchashazeka kwabomama nengane kahle kahle ngoba sekufikile isikhathi sokuthi namhla nami ngibonga ukuthi ngibe la ngoba lezi zinto bengifisa ukuthi ngazikhuluma naku ngiyazikhuluma. And ngicela ukuthi umphakathi nawo babhekane ngezinto ezenzakalayo, lezi zinto zingabi imfihlo ezenzakalayo, zivezwe ukuthi sikhona kuphelisiwe ngoba thina nesingeke sizicede lezi zinto akekho ozoziceda.
Babu Stanley, wena ungathi uhulumeni angaqala kuphi ukulungisa lezi zinto okhuluma ngazo?
Ukuthi angaqala ngokulungisa la emaphoyiseni kakhulu ngoba amaphoyisa yibo bebafanele ukuthi bavikele umphakathi ukuthi ube safe, and manje amaphoyisa bangavikela umphakathi, and then izinto ezimbi ezizenzekayo zizochubekela phambili, and then zizocedisa ubani ngoba yibo amaphoyisa abasibhekile, yibo fanele bacedise lezi zinto. Sesicabanga nokuthi nabo bakhona phakathi kwalezo zinto ngoba lezi zinto azipheli, zichubekela phambili ngemihla namalanga. Ngikhuluma nje nayizolo nje lezi zinto bezenzeka, and akekho umuntu ozobanceda bona laba ababoshiwe manje abachashazwayo ngaso lesikhathi esikhuluma ngaso. Sicela nje uhulumeni ame ngenyawo, lezi zinto zonke eziphelisiwe nomphakathi ngokwawo, lezi zinto ebazibona ezenzeka ezimbi ziveziwe, bangahlali phezu kwazo ngoba inceba ukuthi injury for one is injury for all.
All right, Baba Stanley, thank you very much for joining us. Babu Stanley Kekana telling us there what he wants government to improve on, and of course saying that he remembers very well in the Apartheid era when things were not as simple as they are today. Let me cross now to my colleague Tammy Dixon, who's on the other side of the Union Buildings.
Well, it's quite the beautiful scenes here at the lawns of the Union Buildings. We're getting now into the second phase of the formal program of these celebrations here at the Union Buildings. Now, this is now the cultural part of the program. Earlier on, we saw the military displaying their performances. Now it's the cultural part. Very, very beautiful scenes that we see here at the lawns, which actually indicate indeed that when we got this freedom 19 years ago, it did not only release us from political bondage, but it also released the creative spirits of the South African people. And this is what we see right now here. Beautiful scenes of people showing their creativity and also adding on to the spirit of celebration here at the Union Buildings. I see, the giant beds coming in here. It's really going to be fun, and a lot of people are coming in to enjoy this day, because indeed it is about enjoying this moment more than anything else. And then later on we'll hear the message once people have engaged.
Well, welcome back. We're still on the Southern Lords. This is where many of the people who've come here to celebrate on this Freedom Day have gathered. As you can see on our screens, the proceedings have already started. We're also expecting President Jacob Zuma to make an address a little bit later on. We're talking to ordinary South Africans here about the importance of this day for them. Let's talk now to Herman Vermeer, who was born in South Africa but is of a German origin. Herman, let's talk about Freedom Day and the significance of it for you.
For me, it is something very unique, and to see how the African people experience it, the joy that they experience, it makes me happy.
You were telling me during the ad break that, you being from the old regime, and you were comparing that to issues in Germany where it is your origins come from.
Yeah, in Germany we had the same experience after the Second World War. We went into a new era, and Africa has experienced also a new area. It's a new group of people that are in leadership, and I follow it from a historical point of view, and I am very interested to see what is going to be the outcome finally. But I'm very happy to be here and to see how happy the African people are in this situation, and it's beautiful to see the military and everybody and the children participating.
All right, Herman Vermeer, thank you very much for your time there, speaking to many South Africans who have come here to celebrate on this Freedom Day 19 years on.
Kumnandi apha kulamabala alapha Union Buildings konwatyiwe apha siyabona into yobana nee-flags zamanye amazwe siyazibona nazo zizokungenelela kule migcobo ilapha kuvuyiswana kunye nelizwe loMzantsi Afrika ukuba lafumana inkululeko kwiminyaka eli-19 eladlulayo. Njengoba ubona abantu different cultures have come through, people displaying their different cultures. As you can see, those are the flags from the other countries as well, also taking part in these celebrations here in South Africa. It's a great moment indeed in this country that it has to pause for a moment and reflect really on the strides that it has made, and the excitement really to show that people have been longing indeed for freedom to be able to express themselves culturally, to be able to express themselves creatively as well. And that's exactly what we see today, people appreciating the freedom that we've got 19 years ago.
watching live pictures of celebrations at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Lots of color. The involvement there also of other African countries. You saw there the Zimbabwean flag, the Ghanaian flags, and people from those countries joining in the celebrations. 19 years on, South Africa has been a democracy. On this day, back 19 years ago, that's when we had our first ever democratic and inclusive elections. You're watching a live broadcast of 2013's celebrations, official celebrations of Freedom Day. President Jacob Zuma will be delivering that keynote address to the nation in a short while. Tammy Dixon and Griselda Lewis are, of course, at the Union Buildings, where most of our staff is coming from. But here in the studio, I do have Kayadlanga and Kay Sehwale, where we keep on discussing some of the things that South Africans have expressed and continue to express how they feel about this democracy 19 years on. Let's quickly go to some of the vox pops that we've been conducting the whole week, this past week, getting a sense from South Africans about how they feel about their country 19 years on. Here's what some of them had to say.
Abantu abamhlophe bebengadibani nabantu abamnyama.
Sasingavumelekanga noma sizelwandle. Funeka uba siyahamba, funeka soloko sinezincwadi ezincinci zongena ezindaweni ezithile. Kuba abantu abangangeni endawo abamnyama abangangeni kwezo ndawo.
Kodwa ngoku siyangena ke sadibana nabo because nangoku ndilapha elwandle ngenxa ye-Freedom Day.
I'm grateful for the Freedom Day, that I'm also able to obtain my education in South Africa free, like South Africans, and it's a great day to celebrate, actually, as an African country, that we are able to work together as nations and be able to benefit from this Freedom Day.
South Africans, but also some of the people who are studying here, expressing their views about freedom and democracy in South Africa 19 years after our first democratic election. Xenophobia has been an issue over the past few years. You know, a lot of people saying South Africans seem to have forgotten about where they come from, about the fact that we were harbored by other African nations. They gave us food, they gave us shelter, and they assisted us in getting us where we are today.
It is such a big pity what we go through today. I think we need to really examine certain issues that have created the issues around xenophobia. We also need to introspect as a society, especially I grew up in exile, so some of us who grew up in exile and who have that experience, including a lot of our leaders as well, the education of the South African populace as to how great a part other African countries played in harboring us, and globally as well, not just African countries, but primarily the xenophobic attacks are aimed at people who look like us. And we need to maybe go back to basics of black consciousness even, just to educate our people that we are Africans first before anything else.
But how easy, difficult could it be for someone who is in a bit of a tight corner? They don't work, you know, they can't put food on their table, they don't have education. How easy or difficult is it going to be for that person to really get that message? I mean, only yesterday in the Free State, the Premier wouldn't, or Premier's office wouldn't take a memorandum from protesters, and what they said was, we're going to go to the township and ban the businesses of the foreigners that are there.
You know, it's when people are frustrated, they really look at the closest thing they can vent their frustrations at. And for them right now, they're looking at these people look different. So they need to find something to blame. And what they think, the closest thing for them right now is these foreigners. They said they're taking away their jobs. But then I think it's the nature of a foreigner. When you are in a new country, you don't depend on anybody else but yourself. So we have to work harder. So I just think that we've got to find ways to educate, I think, our communities and make them realize that these are our fellow African brothers and sisters who actually really helped us to get to where we are today. And is an education enough? I don't know if that's really enough. I think that we need to do more than just an education. People, again, I keep going back to the issue about opportunities. People have got to feel that there are opportunities for them. And right now, they feel like they aren't there. And they don't even know how to create those opportunities for themselves when they think about creating them. So it's a very difficult issue that I think the government, even society at large, has to consider and think about improving society so that we don't keep sliding back towards hating another person simply because we perceive them to be different, which is what happened in South Africa. Because there were other people who said that, well, they're different, we'll treat them differently, we'll treat them like animals, and we don't have the right to do that.
Kayadlanga and Kesafale are my studio guests, but back at the Union Buildings we do have Tammy Dixon and Criselda Lewis who are taking us through what is happening there. Let's cross over to Criselda first.
Well, welcome back to the Southern Lawns here at the Union Buildings. The Freedom Day celebrations in full swing here on days like this, where we remember struggle veterans like O.R. Tambo, who fought tirelessly for the freedom of this country but never did get to see it, him dying before that freedom was realized in 1994. We're still talking to many South Africans here about their thoughts on this Freedom Day 19 years on. Joining me now is Mr. Horst. Mr. Horst, thank you very much for joining us here on the Southern Lawns. You know, the significance of this day for you, you're here with your granddaughter, Kamvelihle. Just walk us through what this day is for you.
For me, it's remembering the 19 years ago we received our freedom, irrespective on which side we stood then. But now we are united as South Africans, and we are also celebrating this year, actually, the 19 years of having probably one of the best constitutions in the world. The basic law which guarantees me to live in a free and democratic society together with my granddaughter. I think that is the very important aspect of it, and we must never ever forget to highlight that the constitution is actually the foundation of our democracy.
Mr. Horst, thank you very much. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. As you can see there, the Premier of Gauteng, Nomvula Mokonyane, about to give her address. Let's go to the podium.
Representatives of political parties, our veteran Auntie Sophie de Bruyn, members of the diplomatic corps, residents of Gauteng, fellow South Africans, a very good morning. Our march towards 20 years of freedom, democracy and political stability is gaining momentum by day. It is given impetus by the shared sense of responsibility and collective effort by government and its strategic partners in business, labor and civil society, aimed at defeating the triple challenges of poverty, inequality and unemployment. Today's celebration is about the journey we have traveled together in pursuit of freedom, peace and justice for all. It is also the celebration of the resilient spirit of South Africans to rise above our differences and embrace one another as a united nation. We celebrate this day because we know very well what it means to be enslaved and oppressed, disenfranchised and dispossessed, as well as being humiliated and brutalized. The freedom we enjoy can never be taken for granted, since multitudes of our people sacrificed their lives so that South Africa can be free. We had to bleed so that bigotry, segregation and exploitation can be defeated. Today's celebration should therefore serve as the reminder of the greater challenges we still face. The triple challenges of poverty, inequality and unemployment, which affects all of us as a nation. These can only be totally defeated if we approach and fight them with the same energy and vigor applied to defeat apartheid. We need a concerted effort so that the total emancipation can be realized. Our celebration here today should be a clarion call to all of us to mobilize and consolidate for democracy and freedom. In our different sectors and communities, we should work tirelessly in defense and consolidation of the gains that we have made since the dawn of democracy. We should make it our business, wherever we are, to mobilize our people and build structures that will serve and promote, as well as advance the programs of development as reflected in the mandate you gave this government. So the theme for this year's Freedom Day celebration is relevant in that it enjoins all of us to mobilizing society towards consolidating freedom and democracy. It is the only way in which we can rest assured that our popular programs of transformation and development will be advanced. I would like at this point to welcome all of you here at the Union Buildings, in the city of Tshwane, in the province of Gauteng, in these celebrations, and welcome in particular the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Jacob Zuma, who will give us an address. Let's celebrate in honor of those who came before us. Let's remember, yinde lendlela esihambayo. Thank you, Nyabong.
Yeah, Nyambo. Realeboha Premier. I'm now going to use this opportunity to call upon leaders of political parties to also come and convey their messages. I often have a difficulty because they always say I give them very little time. But I'll appeal once more, 2 minutes to convey your messages so that we are able to give the opportunity to the President to convey a message to the nation. Without any waste of time, I therefore call upon Dr. Matole Motshekga, representing the African National Congress.
Honorable President, Deputy President, Honorable Chief Justice and Speaker of the National Assembly, and the people of South Africa, today presents an opportunity to salute the heroes and heroines of our national liberation struggle for the sacrifices they made so that we are able to celebrate our democracy. It is also an opportunity to reflect upon and reaffirm the intrinsic roots of our nation and the continuing relevance for nation building and social cohesion. Our Constitution, a remarkable product of this nation, which demonstrated what we are capable of when we work together. It is a clear example of our nationhood. It is also embodies the values of a just and caring society. These values were emphasized by President Zuma at the National Summit on Social Cohesion and Nation Building last year. In his opening address, the President said, I quote, "The challenges of poverty, unemployment, homelessness, landlessness, and the divisions around race, class, and gender make it difficult to arrive at a socially cohesive and united nation as fast as we would want to. Our responsibility as government is to lead the South African people towards a national democratic society. This is a society that is united, non-sexist, non-racial, democratic, and prosperous. It is a society with a value system that is based on human solidarity and Ubuntu, which promotes a society which prioritizes caring for and respecting others." I close the quote. At the same summit, the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Gwede Mantashe, also stated that, I quote, Our South Africanness, which we celebrate through our constitution, is a glue which constitutes to and binds social cohesion and nation building, and therefore is an important pillar in our unity in diversity. I close the quote. The SG went on to say that the ANC endorsed the collaborative relationships between parliament, government, the private sector, and the national interfaith movement in nation building. It is important that we all realize that working together we can do more. In this vein, legislatures must see themselves as both the custodians and promoters of democratic values and assume responsibility for consolidating democracy. Through the parliamentary constituency offices, which are the extension of parliament, we can ensure that we mobilize, educate, and inform our people around these matters. Every minister, deputy minister, member of parliament, member of the provincial legislature, and councillors is brought together in these parliamentary constituency offices, and it is necessary for all our people to visit these offices, which are allocated throughout the country. Here people will be assisted with their specific queries, given vital information, and can also escalate their concerns or questions to these members who occupy these offices. I conclude, Honorable Program Director, to say that together with the PCOs, the legislatures, we work with the government to fight hunger, poverty, and crime. By utilizing these offices, people can get responses they need, and there will be no need to feel frustrated and feel despair. We must realize that through self-help and self-sacrifice, the power is in our hands to help build this nation. Madiba said that working together in the community spirit, there is nothing that we cannot overcome. I thank you, Honorable Program Director, and the people of South Africa.
We welcome Reverend Jesse Jackson. We are now going to have Mr. Nicky van der Berg representing the Democratic Alliance, who will then be followed by Mr. Raymond Tlaedi of the ACDP. We're just giving Moruti Jackson a chance to greet the President. And then I will allow Mr. Nicky van der Berg of the Democratic Alliance to take the stage.
Thank you, Program Director, Mr. Mashatile, Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President, Chief Justice, and our Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Sisulu. It's a very great honor for me to be here today and to look around and feel freedom in South Africa. Ek was hier gewees op die dag toe die president Madiba ingehuldig is hier in Pretoria. En daardie dag was 'n wonderlike voorreg en tot vandag is dit 'n wonderlike voorreg om hier te wees, om vry te kan wees in hierdie pragtige land van ons, Suid-Afrika. But I want to bring you a message. There was a struggle to get South Africa free, but that was long ago. The struggle is gone. But there's a very, very, very important thing that you and I may be doing every day of our lives. To uphold this freedom. It was a big battle to get freedom in South Africa. But freedom is not just something you leave over there and it will care for itself. It will never happen. All these young people must build again to uphold freedom in South Africa. It's not just the job of the president, of the deputy president, or the parliament of South Africa. You must uphold freedom in South Africa. When I listen to the shots from Mainkieskop, can you imagine you awake in the morning here in Pretoria and you hear gunfire, cannon shots, and now we stay in this beautiful South Africa. A lot of people fought. There was bloodshed to get this wonderful country where it is today. But I beg you, please, even those people that shown when I spoke Afrikaans, no, you don't like me. I'm also part of South Africa, and I am here to fight for South Africa. I'm here to fight with you. I'm not a struggle hero, but I'm here. I'm fighting a couple of years now to uphold our constitution, to see for it that we have freedom in South Africa. It's not the black people or white people or the colored people's job to keep freedom alive in South Africa. Brother, it's me and you that must do it every day. And the way you have to do it is do your job very, very well every day. Be proud of South Africa. And I want to do something. I was feeling very proud. Dat 'n knop in my keel gekom toe die helikopters hier verbykom. Dit was vir my wonderlik geweest en daar sit 'n president van die vrye Suid-Afrika en ek kan daaraan deel wees en ek kan help veg om hierdie wonderlike geleentheid wat ons vryheid noem, om dit te kan behou. Sê almal net hardop freedom of vryheid en hoor hoe mooi klink die woord vryheid, freedom. Ek dank u.
Baie dankie meneer van Niekerk. Sorry, van der Berg. The struggle for a better life continues. May we have the ACDP? Ntate Tlhaedi.
The Program Director, Honorable Minister Mashatile, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Mr. Zuma, the Deputy President of the Republic, Chief Justice Mogoeng, the Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Sisulu, our Gauteng Provincial Premier, Honorable Mkonyane. Allow me to say all protocol observed. Most importantly, our wonderful South Africans. Today, we celebrate 19 years of democracy and freedom, which led to the transformed institutions, the beginning of the new society, and the integration of South Africa into the world. New policies were put in place to improve people's quality of life. This has constituted a systematic effort to create a society based on equity, non-racialism, non-sexism, by, among others, meeting people's basic needs, transforming the economy, developing human resources, and the nation building. However, the changes in the South African society brought new challenges which required us to assess how far these objectives had been met. Although we have achieved much, we must agree that there are still many challenges to be overcome to fully realize the democracy and the freedom South African citizens are still yearning for. We believe that our society can be mobilized towards consolidating this hard-earned democracy by considering, among others, the following: ensuring faster shared growth to reduce unemployment and poverty, insisting that measures used to overcome poverty are central to any anti-poverty strategy, ensure quality education because it has enormous potential to break the cycle of poverty, improving the country's productive capacity to absorb more labor, encourage competition, increase exports, and create thriving conditions for small and micro enterprises. Developing the second economy programs, establish harmonious society, increase pro-poor government spending, and also improve the service by the state to realize social cohesion. The ACDP believes that it is an admirable aspiration to be united in advancing the socio-economic freedom on condition it is the progressive realization of socio-economic rights as contained in the Bill of Rights. As we celebrate the 19 years of democracy and freedom, it is instructive to consider the second generation socio-economic rights in the Constitution, namely access to education, land, health care, food, water, and social security. In conclusion, the National Development Plan intended to reduce poverty and inequality and increase unemployment and investment should be implemented, we believe, with necessary speed to avoid the service delivery demonstrations that we see culminating today, accompanied mainly by violence and destruction of property and most certainly by loss of life. We believe that mobilizing society towards consolidated democracy and freedom should therefore remain a continuous, all-inclusive process. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taidi of the ACDP. Will now invite to the stage Mr. Nkosinathi Mahala of the APC, will be followed by Mr. Lawrence Mulai of Azapo.
Comrade Program Director, Comrade President Zuma, Comrade Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, Ministers, sons and daughters of Africa. Comrade President, this day, the 27th of April, marks the 19th anniversary since the attainment of our hard-fought democracy. APC, it befitting to once again remind ourselves as revolutionaries that our liberation struggle was about land and its resources, bridging the gap between the rich and the poor, as well as the restoration and projection of African personality. Whilst the focus is rightfully on the super exploitation of mine workers, we need not to forget the social ills suffered by farm workers in this new dispensation. To them, freedom is a dream perpetually deferred, as they on a daily basis continue to be the source of exploitation, dehumanization. I must say they are no longer willing to continue to be the recipients or wait for crumbs dropping from the tables of the white farmers. Comrade President, can we talk of freedom whilst in one of the provinces in South Africa, the Western Cape, the fulfillment of freedom it cannot be where out of 13 departments, only one department has a black HOD, whilst in some departments and components like libraries and archive services, we witness a situation in the Western Cape, Comrade President. Out of 4 deputy directors, 3 are white and only 1 is colored, and no black representative. Is that freedom? Comrade President, the same can also be said with City of Cape Town. The management within the very same component, library services, it's contaminated with white managers with few coloreds and no black representative. What are we saying? Is that the freedom that we fought for? Comrade President, APC makes a plea to you to instruct Comrade Oliphant, the Minister of Labour, to please investigate this, and the government of that province need to be told and reminded that Western Cape is not a folk state, holding the values and interests of white Herefordism. Blacks and coloureds are treated and regarded as outcasts in their country of birth in the Western Cape. Distribution of job opportunities and resources leave a lot to be desired in the Western Cape. South Africa cannot be able to be proud of itself of having freedom, whilst in that province this is what we witness. The only answer from the head of that province is that there are no blacks and colored graduates in the Western Cape. That is an insult, that is a lie, that is not true. It must be rejected and it must be condemned. Lastly, Comrade President, in December 2011, I was in Fort Beaufort in the Eastern Cape. There was no water. Again, in December 2012, I was in Fort Beaufort. There was a problem of water. Under those circumstances, will it be proper for us to speak of advancement of socio-economic freedom for all, whilst we can't provide a simple necessity in a form of water? Comrade President, in conclusion, APC proposes for an engagement into a process that will enhance the ideals of our liberation struggle, a process that will lead to social transformation, as political transformation cannot be separated from economic transformation, a process that will lead to a more revolutionary debate and realization of a people's democratic dictatorship. People are supposed to dictate. Not leaders like the leader of the Western Cape must dictate to blacks and coloreds in that province. It must be people that's supposed to dictate. That is not on, that must be condemned, that must be rejected, that we are not outcasts, we are the people of this country, we are Africans, this is an African country. Amandla! Amandla! Forward to social transformation, forward! Forward to social transformation, forward! I thank you.
Can we now have Azapo? Tate Mulai will be followed by the IFP, Mr. Bonginkosi Dlamini.
Thank you. Moshompehi Mopresidente Ntate Jacob Zuma, Motlatsa Mopresidente Ntate Kgalema Motlanthe, Chief Justice Ntate Mogoeng, Speaker of Parliament Mr. Max Sisulu, Minister Mashatile, Setjhaba sa Africa Sekopane. I bring you fraternal greetings and well wishes from the Azanian People's Organization, AZAPO. AZAPO greets you in the mighty names of Bantu Biko, in the mighty name of Mangaliso Sobukwe, and in the mighty name of none other than Chris Hani. It is our view as AZAPO that however limited our freedom might be, our political independence was attained through blood, sweat,
and tears of our people. Our political independence didn't come cheap. Neither was it handed to us. Our people fought for it. It is for this reason, Mr. President, that we in AZAPO believe that as the leaders of the organizations that actually fought for this struggle, we must not merely urge people to come and celebrate this day through song and dance. It would be appropriate to take some time to remember those who gave the supreme sacrifice so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we do today. We must also use a day like this to empower our people, especially the youth, to understand why it is that our people fought for freedom. And by doing so, to enable them to engage meaningfully with the concept of freedom. Mr. President, the sacrifices of Ubiko, Usobukwe, Uhani, and thousands others compels us that we should make an honest assessment of whether the freedom we celebrate here today does indeed manifest itself as part of the daily experiences of the majority of our people. It is for this reason that as leaders of the organizations that fought for liberation, we cannot remain calm when Andries Tatani, a father and a community leader, is killed with such brutality by our own police. We cannot remain calm when people are shot in Marikana simply for demanding that they not be treated like slave labor. AZAPO finds it difficult to remain calm when exploited farm workers in the Durans find themselves in fierce battles with police for simply demanding 150 rand. AZAPO and all the organizations that fought for liberation cannot afford to remain calm, especially in the face of indifference and such injustice. To remain calm and indifferent is tantamount to betraying the ideals of those that came before us. The ideals lived and died for so that we may freely inhale and exhale the air of freedom that we do today. Mr. President, these and other contradictions in our current society leave a bitter taste in our collective consciousness. It is therefore AZAPO's sincere wish that after the music of today's festivities shall have died down, we, the parties representing the various strands of the liberation movement, can come together and seek a practical solution to the paradoxes of the democratic dispensation of today. In conclusion, AZAPO wishes all who are gathered here today and all at various localities around the country a truly wonderful and joyous Freedom Day. Amandla!
Thank you very much, Tatemlai. May I have the ISP, Tate Zami.
Program Director, Honorable Mr. Mashatile, His Excellency the President of the Republic, Malala, the Deputy President of our country, Mr. Khalima Motlanthe, the Chief Justice, Mukhweng, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Kamela, the Premier of our province, Kabazela, Honorable Ministers and members of the Executive present, and fellow South Africans. In 2014, for the first time ever, the generation of born-frees will go to the polling stations and cast their democratic vote. They will think back to that day on the 27th of April 1994, when their parents and grandparents patiently waited in snaky queues to exercise their newfound freedom. They will consider how much has changed in South Africa 2 decades after apartheid. These generations will be voting with their minds firmly on the present. They will be voting for education, for employment, and an end to crime. They will be voting for the sake of issues that affect them directly, immediately, every day. To those young voters, we say thank you. We express our gratitude in advance for their commitment to building South Africa without having experienced the pain of the past. They will draw a line under 1994 and announce a new era in South African politics. The leaders and history makers of this generation will be driven by a desire to heal the past and the desire to embrace the future. The IFP supports this generation and recognizes the significance of their voice. On this Freedom Day, just a year before a national election, the IFP encourages you to get involved in shaping our nation. Do not stand back with the scoffs and despairing, angry at every failure of leadership. Instead, find a way to change the political climate through your own actions and initiative. The IFP believes in responsible citizenship, knowing that the right to vote brings with it the responsibilities of being an active and involved, empowered citizen. This afternoon, Prince Buthelezi will be supporting the signing of a citizens' charter and will commit anew to the values of good citizenship, encouraging others to embrace the dual responsibility and relationship between freedom and responsibility. On this Freedom Day 2013, the IFP honors all those heroes and heroines who sacrificed and persevered for political freedom. Today, we place our hope in the next generation of politically involved. I thank you.
Siyabonga Babu Dlamini. May I now have Ntate Joko Bennett, PAC, will be followed by Medi Chetelo of the UCDP.
Program Director, Comrade Paul Mashatile, the Honorable President of the Republic, Comrade President Zuma, the Deputy President of the Republic, Comrade Khalima, and protocol observed. I hope Program Director, because probably parties which had contributed to the attainment of political democracy will be given more than 2 minutes. Today, probably we need to make this particular distinction because this day of the attainment of a political democracy in this country, it coincides exactly with 100 years of landlessness of African people. It is exactly 100 years when land dispossession occurred in this particular country, and that particular situation has not changed. The civilization of African people was disrupted by that particular dispossession. Program Director, probably we need to make this particular distinction because we have attained a political democracy, but this political democracy without economic and social democracy, it is becoming a joke. The fact is, in 1994 in this country, we we elected a government, and that delivered a political democracy. But in order to declare that we have got freedom, you must be free from something. You must be free from exploitation. You must be free from landlessness. You must be free from racism, ignorance, disease, oppression, insecurity, hunger, and other ills of society. And also, to attain freedom, there has to be freedom for something which as a collective we strive to do. The complete package, it must entail the political, economic, and social democracy. We find ourselves in a situation where still the majority of African people are landless. The workers are still exploited by the capital. You still have rampant racism in this particular country. The education system has not liberated people from ignorance. It cannot be called freedom. But let us acknowledge we attained this political democracy, and we need to work forward and mobilize people towards freedom. Program Director, in conclusion, there is also something which is disturbing in this particular society. There has been a complete absence of basic human morality. In this particular regard, it would refer to the issue that we must uphold truth, and we must seek truth, and we must be very sincere. This particular issue is absent in the society. We are currently faced with people who are very greedy, who steal from the poor with no conscience at all. And they embezzle state funds with no shame. They put their relatives in houses at the expense of deserving people. They take tenders to their families, and they give tenders to their fellow colleagues. This is the absence of basic human morality. And this is the absence of sincerity in the whole of society. Let us march towards the attainment of basic human morality. Let us march and mobilize people towards freedom. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bennett. Medichitelo, UCDP, will be followed lastly by UDM, Ntate Ditapan.
Dumelang bagaetsho, Honorable Mashatile, our President, His Excellency, Rarona Ntate Zuma, our Deputy President, Rarona Remutlante, our Chief Justice, Rem Mogoeng, our Speaker, Honorable Sisulu, Marona, our Premier, thanks God she's a woman, Me Nkonyana.
Greetings to all South Africans, to all freedom lovers, and to overseers of our freedoms. I'm grateful to have an opportunity to address this gathering on such a commemorative event, not just commemorative but significantly historical. These are interesting gatherings in our country. The mood captured for these occasions is celebratory. None of us, I assume, want to forget the onset of freedom from apartheid. We just cannot forget where we have been, what has been done to us. Although such amnesia may gladden some, similarly we cannot pick some such memories as excuses when it's convenient to us. We commemorate in order to measure the ground we have covered, to see whether we are still on track, to see if we still have common aspirations as people, to measure whether we remain true to the values of freedom, and possibly see if we still have similar interpretations of freedom as we did 19 years ago. We have heroes and heroines who consciously lay their lives for this freedom. We are internally grateful for them, and so will the generation to come, I pray. We teach our children but such struggles, such heroic acts, I hope. But do we have it? Are we a free people? Do we have a common concept of what it means to be free? Are we still on track? Do we respect freedom, ours and our neighbors? Do we have a government committed to freedom of its people? We have possibly achieved liberty, but certainly not freedom. Liberty achieved has not translated into freedom. Freedom is bigger, precious, noble, and moral. Simply put, it's the ability to do what you want to do without infringing others' freedom. The consistent decline in scores on governance should and must make us weary and vigilant. Something is consistently going astray. We must ask ourselves and those accountable to us, what is happening? What is really happening? Do we have reason to celebrate when critical voices are silenced? In the words of George Crocos, who is a poet, freedom is freedom from hunger and freedom from pain, freedom from loss, and so freedom from gain, freedom to give and freedom to share, freedom from want and that of despair, freedom to think and freedom to know, freedom to achieve and freedom to grow, freedom from bondage and freedom from liberation, freedom from ignorance and many unknown situations. Thank you. Pula.
I'll now ask Mr. Stanley Tapani from the UDM to come and make his remarks.
Program Director, Minister of Arts and Culture, Mr. President Ngamala, Deputy President Mdakamtlante, our Chief Justice, our Speaker Pamela, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, fellow South Africans. Freedom Day commemorations should more than celebrating remind us of the heavy price our struggling heroes and heroines paid for our freedom. We should use this day to reflect on the challenges facing us today and the progress we have made since the advent of democracy in 1994. Coming back to today's theme, which is mobilize society towards constituting our democracy and freedom, we should evaluate the performance of our democracy in accordance with the important procedural dimensions of democratic quality. These include, but not limited to, the rule of law, citizen participation, electoral competition, as well as vertical and horizontal accountability. Significant progress has been made to the respect of the first five mentioned dimensions of democratic quality. Honorable Chief Justice, we have over the past 19 years managed to entrench the respect of the rule of law. And our laws are fairly and constantly applied to all the citizens. But there were a few instances where some people feel in the past principle of legal egalitarianism did not apply. We have seen improvement in electoral competition between our political parties, albeit under certain conditions they seem to favor the governing parties. Citizens' rights of political participation is also firmly entrenched because people have the political right to vote, organize, assemble, and protest, among other things. Despite these remarkable strides, South Africa still has a challenge of elected political leaders who fail to answer to the electorate for their political decisions. This failure to account and consult has resulted in a breakdown of democracy at local government level in particular. Apart from accountability, democracy is undermined when people lose faith and confidence in democratic mechanisms and processes due to high levels of corruption and abuse of power. When this happens, people resort to burning tires, barricade roads in order to get their voices heard. Program Director, this year's Freedom celebration coincides with the centenary of the Native Land Act of 1913, in terms of which black South Africans were dispossessed of their land. Mr. President, the United Democratic Movement welcomes and appreciates the seriousness with which you are taking the land issue. We therefore and also appreciate the sensitivity which you acknowledge this issue involves. We therefore appeal to every role player who is responsible for this process of land issue to take it as serious as you are, Mr. President. They must not apply brakes in this process. They must give this the agency it deserves. I also appeal to the beneficiaries of the Land Act to come forward and embrace the government in its endeavor to challenge and to address the social and economic problem that permeates South African society. Mr. President, you together with the government, you cannot address the socio-economic problem properly without first addressing the land issue. These beneficiaries of the Land Act, they must come forward, as I have said, and say to the government, even before we start talking about the land I own, here are the hectares I don't use. Take them for redistribution. Honorable President, our political freedom will be meaningless if it fails to translate into social economic freedom for the majority citizens of this country. If the majority citizens of this country are still landless in their own country of birth, due to our inability as the government to undo the damage caused by the 1913 Land Act, I therefore once more appeal to all the role players to take this issue very serious. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Siyabulela Babuntampani. Those were the leaders of political parties. I'm now going to give this opportunity to our veteran, Mayor Sophia de Bruin, to convey a message from the social cohesion advocates. Mayor Sophia de Bruin is known to many of us. She was one of those mothers who marched to the Union building in the early 50s. So we're going to give an opportunity to come and convey a message. After that, I'm going to give a short break for one performance, and then I'm going to take the President's speech so that we can conclude the formalities. Ms. Sophie de Bruyn is also a Member of Parliament. Ms. de Bruyn.
Thank you, Program Director, for your kind remarks. Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, President of South Africa, Your Excellency, Mr. Motlanthe, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honorable Mogoeng, Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. M. Sisulu, Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. M. Mhlanga, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Paul Mashatila, our Minister of Arts and Culture, Mr. C. Chabana, Minister of the Presidency, and Ms. M. N. Mokonyana, our Premier of Gauteng Province, the MMC in Gonyama, representing the Executive Mayor of Tshwane, and to all our national leaders of political parties represented here. We are reminded again today at this Freedom Day celebrations of the symbolism of our national coat of arms and the flag. And I'd like to quote, "It is both South African and African. It is both African and universal. It serves to invoke our distant past, our living present, and our future as it unfolds before us. It represents the permanent yet evolving identity of the South African people as it shapes itself through time and space. Through this new coat of arms, we pay homage to our past. We seek to embrace the indigenous belief systems of our people by demonstrating our respect for the relationships between people and nature, which for millions of years have been fundamental to our self-understanding of our African condition." And I close quotes. So inspired by the representatives from all sectors of our society that gathered at the Walter Sisulu Square of Dedication at Kliptown in Soweto on July 2012 to participate in the National Summit on Social Cohesion and Nation Building. We were there representing the diversity of our nation, black and white, women and men, rich and poor, young and old, urban and rural, speaking different languages, with a diversity of beliefs and coming from many different places, seeking to fulfill the injunction of our Constitution as a diverse people to unite. And we came together to renew our commitment to mobilize and unify society in our ongoing national movement of healing the divisions of our painful past and establishing a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. And so today I speak as one of the delegates at that summit of organized labor, business, civil society, academia, and faith-based organizations to reinforce, to restate the commitments we made at the summit and to call on all South Africans to participate in a year of activities consolidating our democracy and freedom, building up to the celebration of 20 years of democracy in 2014. Let us together in our organizations, in our communities, in our workplaces reflect on how our democracy was achieved. Let us remember where we were on 27 April 1994 and recall the road we have traveled since then. Let us also identify and celebrate what we have achieved over the past 20 years and work together to build a better future. Our country is still faced with many challenges, and chief amongst them is poverty and inequality. Let us, in the course of the next 12 months, redouble our efforts and work with every organization and every individual to engage ourselves in practical programs in a spirit of volunteerism to create a South Africa that belongs to all its people and to benefit them all. And I quote, "We say to one another, I cannot be without you. Without you, the South African community is incomplete. Without one single person, without one single group, without the region or the continent, we are not the best that we can be. South Africa belongs to all its people. We, the people, belong to one another. We live the rainbow nation. Our homes, our neighborhoods, our villages, towns, and cities are safe, filled with laughter. Through our institutions, we order our lives. The faces of our children tell of the future we have crafted." Close quotes. And I thank you.
Thank you very much to Ms. Sophia de Bruyn. We're going to take one performance, and then after that we will invite the President to the podium to address the nation. The young people there under the tree, we know you want to dance and sing, enjoy Freedom Day, but if you can please allow us to complete the speeches. We'll send someone, if they don't hear me, under the tree there to convey the message.
Well, welcome back once again to the Southern Lawns here at the Union Buildings. Still getting quite full here behind me as more people trickle in anticipation for President Jacob Zuma's speech. 19 years of freedom and democracy. That's what we're celebrating here today. Let's talk to some of the young people we didn't have time to speak to a little bit earlier on. Thank you very much for joining us. As a young person in South Africa today, what is your definition of democracy, of freedom? What do you understand by it?
being free and doing whatever you want. Because in apartheid, you couldn't go where you wanted because everything was white or colored or black or Indian. Hence, now we're in a society where we can do whatever we want, go where we want, and so, be free. So, yeah.
You were telling us as well that, when I was having a conversation with you, you said you're able to go to white schools now, you socialize with your white friends. There aren't any problems regarding that?
No, there isn't, but some are like racist, still living in that era. But now we can be friends and be equal, because that's what we are in society.
Let's speak to you here. Your definition of freedom?
Freedom is like being able to do whatever you want these days. Like during apartheid times, like blacks can't do whatever they want. They like had to walk around with the passports and everything. And like people are always racist towards only the blacks. Like the majority is like only Indians and colors and whites are like together in a group. So like now you can be able to go whatever school you want to go. You can like be able to go wherever you want without being judged. Yeah.
Right, thank you very much to the young people here who clearly have an understanding of the importance of this day. Let's listen to some of the sounds there that are coming from the stage.
What type of smile would you like to serve with Ultramel? The ecstatic smile. The can't wait to get there smile. Or what about the can't help but smile smile? Buy 4 Ultramel 1 litre packs and SMS the unique on-pack codes plus your wish to 33448. Wish for anything and stand a chance to win your wish up to the value of 50,000 Rand. Daily wishes granted, so get your packs now.
Whoa! What's that stain?
Have a crush, Mum.
What?
Have a crush stain?
Ever heard of it?
No, never heard of it.
Name that stain again.
Have a crush stain, and he keeps coming home with it.
Let's see if new Oma Auto can remove it in one easy wash. Unlike other powders, new Oma Auto removes tough stains in just one easy wash. You name the stain, and new Oma Auto will remove it in just one easy wash.
What type of smile would you like to serve with Ultramel? The ecstatic smile. The can't wait to get there smile. Or what about the can't help but smile smile? Buy 4 Ultramel 1 litre packs and SMS the unique on-pack codes plus your wish to 33448. Wish for anything and stand a chance to win your wish up to the value of 50,000 Rand. Daily wishes granted, so get your packs now.
Very beautiful mix there of Zulu and Indian cultures as we watch this performance over here, and it's a break now that is given a chance to the performance as we wait for the President of the Republic of South Africa to give the message of the day to all these people who have come here and throughout the country as well, to reflect on what this 19 years of our freedom actually means. The Minister of Arts and Culture, Paul Mashatile, is on stage now. I believe he's going to introduce the President. Let's take a listen.
Squilly and Babo, Louis Carver, Judith Sipuma, DJ Ralph Gum, and Chomi. Later. Now, I was told that the young people there under the tree wanted to sing a song before the President speaks. I'm going to give you 1 minute. And when I tell you to keep quiet, you must keep quiet. Do you have a song? You were paralyzed by Tribanki. Okay. Next time they are paralyzed. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to invite to the podium President of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, to address the nation.
Thank you very much, the praise singers. Director of the program, Minister Paul Mashatile, Honorable Deputy President Khalima Motlanthe, Premier of the Gauteng Province, Menom Vulanom Konyan, Chief Justice of the Republic, Mogoeng, Speaker of National Parliament, Max Sisulu, Ministers, Premiers who are here, Deputy Ministers, MECs, leaders of political parties represented in Parliament, members of Parliament and provincial legislatures, heads of Chapter 9 institutions, acting Mayor of Tshwane, Councillor Gomane, Councillor Gonyama, all mayors present here, traditional leaders and religious leaders present here, members of the diplomatic corps, and all international guests who are with us today, fellow South Africans, Molweni, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Sialochisa, Abshe. Good day to you all. we have come together to celebrate the most important day on the calendar of our young nation. On this day, we look back with pride as a nation because the struggle for national liberation achieved its primary purpose. We achieved the elimination of apartheid colonialism and institutionalized racism, and replaced it with a new society founded on human rights, equality, justice, dignity, peace, and stability. Together, we affirmed the assertion of our wise and forward-looking forebears who stated in the Freedom Charter that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it was based on the will of all the people. Our transformation journey began immediately after elections in 1994, under the leadership of President Mandela and later President Thabo Mbeki. During the first 10 years of democracy alone, the Democratic Parliament approved 789 laws or amendments to eliminate racism from our statute books. From the fragmented public administrations of the apartheid era, we constructed a unitary state, 9 provinces, and a reconfigured municipal landscape. As we look back at the road traveled since 1994, we recall that it has not been easy. It was never going to be easy. But we have made tremendous progress. We are a very humble nation. We do not boast about our achievements. We also tend to be highly critical of ourselves. But on this special day, we must declare that we are a truly remarkable nation for walking away from that evil system of governments that was declared a crime against humanity by the United Nations. When the going gets tough at times, we look back at how far we have come. There were episodes that could have made a less resilient nation to lose hope and give up. A case in point is the senseless assassination of one of the key leaders of the ANC and SACP, Mr. Chris Hani, and also the horrific Boipatong massacre at a critical point of negotiations. To outsiders, South Africa was heading towards a civil war. We made the right choice. The nation subjected itself immediately to the leadership of the ANC President Nelson Mandela, and we overcame anger, frustration, and helplessness. We returned to the negotiating table to build our future. together, we went on to have a historic peaceful election and achieved a transition that was declared a miracle by the world, as they were truly surprised by the successes. It was not really a miracle. We worked very hard to achieve that transition. Thanks to our hard work and putting our country first before sectional interests. Today, we live in a country with a constitution that guarantees the rights of all, irrespective of their race, gender, ethnicity, creed, or sexual orientation. We enjoy the right to equality, to freedom of expression and assembly, the rights of workers, women, children, as well as rights to culture and languages. We have socio-economic rights which other nations avoid putting in their constitutions. Importantly, compatriots, since 1994, we have made significant progress in healing the wounds of our unhappy past. We went through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission process in order to confront the demons of our past. Very few countries brave this exercise for fear that it would backfire and cause more conflict. We are moving ahead to promote unity and social cohesion. In April last year, more than 1,000 delegates met in Kliptown for the National Summit on Social Cohesion. The conference appointed eminent men and women as advocates for social cohesion, such as Ms. Sophie Dubrain, Judge Yvonne Mukhoro, Advocate George Bezos, Ms. Bragelia Bam, and many others. We must all participate in making the country's social cohesion program a success. Compatriots, if we are to genuinely say that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, then all our people must be able to equitably share in the benefits of a free society. The triple manifestations of the apartheid legacy, poverty, inequality, and unemployment reaffirm our belief that political freedom must be accompanied by economic freedom as the next phase of liberation. The economic wealth of the country must bring about fundamental social change in the lives of all, especially the youth, the poor, and the working class. It is for this reason that we have adopted the National Development Plan as our socio-economic development blueprint to help us further implement the vision outlined in the Freedom Charter and the Constitution of the Republic. The adoption and acceptance of the National Development Plan by all parties in the National Assembly and almost all sectors of society is yet
another magnificent achievement of this remarkable nation. It brings us closer to achieving the vision of our forebears and the mission of building a truly united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. In celebrating our democracy and freedom of expression, we must allow the space for those who still wish to engage the National Development Plan and raise their concerns or suggest improvements. This is a democratic country where citizens are free to express their views. But those views must be expressed within the confines of our constitutions and laws, but also they must express alternative suggestions. It doesn't help anyone just to criticize endlessly without saying what then that needs to be done. That's what we want to hear from our citizens. But we are forging ahead with implementation, building on the successes of the past 19 years. Indeed, the results of Census 2011, released last year, revealed substantial progress already in the expansion of basic services such as water, sanitation, electricity, housing, and others. Njengoba sigubha usuku lwenkululeko namhlanje, sibonga ukuthi ukuhlukumezeka okwakukhona ngaphambili kwabantu abamnyama bephathiswa okwezifiki bengenasizathu sokuthi baphathwe kanje, benziwe ukuthi bengabi nasithunzi ezweni labo lokuzalwa. Sakuqeda lokho nya sibambisene sonke ngonyaka ka-1994. Impilo iyathuthuka kubo bonke abantu njalo nje, kancane kancane konke kuyoze kulunga. Kukho kulunga ngelanga elilodwa. IsiZulu sithi nesilwane sawaqeda amanzi ngolimi. Izibalo ziyakhombisa ukuthi sebandile impela abantu asebefakelwe ugesi, amanzi, nasebakhelwe izindlu nokunye. Kodwa siyazi ukuthi akwanele, asikakaqedi ngoba isibalo sabantu abantulayo sikhulu kakhulu. Abantu abamnyama babeshiywe ngemumva kakhulu ngesikhathi sobandlululo. Akukho kwakwenzelwe bona ukuthi kuhambisane nokwenzelwe abanye bamanyama babo. Sizoqhubeka nokusebenza ngokuzikhandla, sibambisene nemiphakathi ukulungisa izindawo ezihlala abantu nokuletha izidingo zabantu. Lokho kuzokwenza ukuba izithelo zenkululeko zibonakale kuzo zonke izinkalo kulelizwe lethu. Housing continues to be a challenge, but progress is being made. The RDP housing program has built over 3 million housing units since 1994. The percentage of households with access to potable water has increased from 60% to over 90%. Access to electricity has increased from 50% of households to approximately 80%. While income inequality remains high, the expansion of our social grants system from 2.7 million people in 1994 to 16 million currently has contributed to a significant reduction in the proportion of households living in poverty. The further extension of basic services requires the public service to be more efficient, effective, and caring in order to make people's experience of government a pleasant one. There are many achievements on the economic front as well. The South African economy has expanded by 83% over the past 19 years. The national income per capita has increased from 27,500 in 1993 to 38,500 in 2012, which is an increase of 40%. Disposable income per capita of households has increased by 43%. Total employment has increased by more than 3.5 million since 1994. The average real wages in mining and industry have increased by over 150% since 1994, for which we congratulate business and labor. Our country's economy continues to perform well in many areas, including infrastructure, institutions, goods and market efficiency, financial market development, technological readiness, business sophistication, and innovation. Only yesterday, we received the exciting news that South Africa has won the Offshoring Destination of the Year Award for 2013 from the European Outsourcing Association. This confirms our status as a leading business process outsourcing destination of choice. On the 25th of April, we announced a whopping 10.2% increase in tourist arrivals to our country for 2012, while the world average increase is at around 4%. In 1993, South Africa received a mere 3.4 million foreign visitors. By 2012, the figure had grown by 300% to 13.5 million visitors, of which 9.2 million were tourists. This is an outstanding achievement for a country that was once a pariah state among states. The fruits of our freedom have indeed come in many forms. The financial sector remains robust and healthy, with strong growth in turnover on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, highly liquid capital markets, and a well-regulated banking and financial services industries. This remains one of the primary selling points of our country globally. We also celebrate progress in the communications sector. As of last week, there were 63 million cellular phone subscribers in the country across the networks. This is above our population, which means we communicate in this country, which means overwhelming majority have cell phones. Other than demonstrating a very conversational nation, this achievement should position South Africa very well on her journey towards creating the robust knowledge and information society envisaged in the National Development Plan. In other communications industries achievements, 37 new post offices were opened last year, mostly in rural areas. South Africans visited South African post office branches 81 million times last year for various services. Another 2.3 million people renewed their vehicle registrations at the post office. And this past year, 4.3 billion rand was deposited into the Post Bank, which has 4.5 million customers, mostly the working class and the poor. We are also proud of achievements in infrastructure development, building on previous successes such as the 2010 FIFA World Cup projects. We have undertaken major national road improvements and have begun the expansion of power generation and rail transport capacity. The total value of infrastructure projects currently underway and in planning amounts to over 3.6 trillion rand. We have made progress. We have indeed something to celebrate. 19 years now. If there are people who feel there is nothing to celebrate, then they must be living in another South Africa, not this one, where we are. Compatriots, we cannot allow corruption to steal the fruits of our freedom. Positive inroads are being made in the fight against corruption by various state agencies. In 2010, we established the Justice, Crime and Prevention Security Cluster's Anti-Corruption Task Team to fast-track high-priority and high-profile corruption cases. The team works with government departments to strengthen governance systems, reduce risks, and prevent corruption. By the end of December 2012, criminal investigations were initiated against 237 persons by the task team and 21 staff members within the criminal justice system were convicted. A total of 718 persons are currently under investigation for corrupt activities. Freezing orders to the value of more than 1 billion rand have been obtained. In addition, I've signed 34 proclamations between 2009 and 2013, directing the Special Investigating Unit to investigate various government departments and state-owned enterprises. The unit has completed some of the investigations and will be sending reports to the presidency. A lot of good work is being done by a host of other state agencies to fight corruption, and we congratulate them on their good work. We congratulate the private sector. We encourage the private sector to also assist us by intensifying the fight against corruption within its own ranks. Fellow South Africans, I must as well underline here that of all the countries that I know of, very few compared to South Africa in the effort to fight corruption. In fact, in other countries, nobody talks about corruption. We fight corruption here. We are more on the media because we fight corruption. We declared war against corruption, and we are making progress. Compatriots, our national priority going forward is economic transformation and the continued implementation of programs to fight poverty and inequality and to alleviate unemployment. The gap between white and black households, for obvious historical reasons, remains wide, as revealed by Census 2011, with white households earning 6 times more than black households. The transformation of ownership and management of the economy continues. It is encouraging that over 600 billion rand of black economic empowerment transitions have been recorded since 1995. Another success story is that the number of black people and women in senior management has increased from less than 10% in the 1990s to over 40% today. However, accelerated progress is still needed in this regard. The recent Employment Equity Report revealed that at the top management level, whites are at 72.6% and blacks at 12.3%. The gender breakdown is 80.1% male and 19.8% female at top management. People with disabilities constitute 1.4% of the total workforce, which means we must move faster in order to achieve the target of 2% representation by 2015. With regards to the ownership of the economy, the 2012 Johannesburg Stock Exchange indicated that direct black ownership of shares on the exchange is less than 5%. Working together without apportioning blame against one another, we need to fast-track transformation in order to achieve full emancipation for all. Fortunately, we have enough legal instruments to assist social partners to take this process forward. In the State of the Nation address, I announced the intention of government to reopen restitution claims for those who lost their land since June 1913, but had missed the deadline of 31st December 1998. A draft bill to that effect will be tabled in Cabinet soon. It is an important aspect of the issues that as a nation we have to address appropriately, but within the framework and the confines of the law and the Constitution. Compatriots and friends, we have come a long way since 1994. We've faced many hurdles along the way, but we remain on course. At this point, I would like to thank all South Africans for the unity displayed during difficult situations. We stood together during the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, when about 1 million of our people lost jobs. Government, business, labor, and the community sector came together and worked on mechanisms to cushion the economy against further economic turmoil. We are working together again to shield the economy during the current economic crisis caused by the meltdown in our key markets in Europe and in the United States. Most importantly, we stood together in shock and pain during the horrific killing of more than 40 patriots in Marikana near Rustenburg. Many thought the Marikana tragedy marked the end of the road for a peaceful and democratic South Africa. But working together, we rose above the tragedy and put our country first. We await the conclusion of the Falam Commission of Inquiry into this painful matter. Let me also thank all South Africans for the support provided to the families of our 13 soldiers who fell tragically in Bangui in the Central African Republic, and the 5 soldiers who died in a helicopter crash near Kruger National Park last month on a mission to save our rhinos from ruthless poachers. We also continue to work together to promote youth development. Only last week, the network partners, government, business, labor, and the community sector signed the National Youth Accord, committing themselves to promoting youth employment and skills development. The Minister of Finance announced a youth incentive scheme in the budget vote in February, which complements this accord. The proposal will soon serve in cabinet and later in parliament. Compatriots, on this important day, we also celebrate the role the country plays internationally. We are playing our part in reconfiguring global economic arrangements through participation in the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, the G20, the Financial Stability Forum, the World Trade Organization, and more recently, in partnership with the BRICS countries. Participation in cementing peace and stability in Africa also continues, as is our passionate involvement in promoting the African agenda of renewal and sustainable development and positioning Africa positively in world affairs. Fellow South Africans and friends, our freedom was not free. It came at a huge price. On this day, let us pause to think of all our compatriots and foreign nationals who paid the supreme price for our freedom and lost their lives. In their memory, we congratulate all South Africans for choosing the path of peace in 1994. As we mark 100 years since Charlotte Maxeke launched the women's struggle for freedom, we salute all women for their contribution to a free South Africa. Let us renew our commitment to rid our society of violence and the abuse of women and children in the home and everywhere else. On this 50th anniversary year of the Rivonia trial, we salute Madiba and all our leaders, the Rivonia trialists, and pledge to continue learning from their resilience, strength, wisdom, and their boundless love for this country and its people. On this important day, we also salute members of the anti-apartheid movement abroad who never gave up fighting until we were free. We also thank our brothers and sisters in the African continent for solidarity under difficult conditions. Later today, we will celebrate our freedom further through bestowing national orders to some outstanding men and women from our country and abroad who have contributed to the success of our country in various ways. Let me also thank the other two arms of the state, the legislature and the judiciary, with whom we work as the executive to take forward the mission of building a united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa. Indeed, we have come far since 1994, where we have made mistakes. We must learn from them as we continue building our beloved South Africa together. As we head towards 20 years of freedom next year, Let us deepen unity amongst all South Africans and all African people. We must build South Africa together as directed by our founding president, Madiba, when he said, and I quote, "We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society where all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their right to human dignity. A rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world." Unquote. Compatriots and friends of the Republic around the world, happy Freedom Day to you all, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. A big round of applause for the President once more. Multicultural group, please come in. Give us some performance before we close the formal session. There'll still be more coming, so don't go away.
Hayi ke watsho kwavokotheka umongameli echaza indlela ehanjiweyo usukela ngo-1994 kuzothi ngoku, kodwa isitsho into yokubana kusekuninzi ekufuneka kwenziwe, kodwa abantu mabayivuyele imini yenkululeko.
Thank you very much to everybody at home for watching. Happy Freedom Day to everyone watching at home. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Sibambe ngazo zibini ku-Criselda Lewis kanti nakuye uTami Dixon. To our special guests, Kay Sekhwale and Kaya Dlanga, thank you so much. It's a pity we didn't have time to sort of look at that speech and maybe pick up on some of the issues that the President raised there. But that's how we come to the end of this special broadcast, Freedom Day 2013, brought to you by SABC News. From me, Vuyo Mvoko, and the rest of the crew, enjoy Freedom Day.
Eureka's residents are acting